Hello and welcome back once again to Sambo iRacing. It's week 5, season 1, 2024. We are in the Formula Vee at Lime Rock for their Grand Prix layout. Unlike the last 2 weeks, qualifying is going to be less important than it was because there are far more overtaking opportunities. However, it's still far better to be ahead of the pack when we come into the chicane, because we all know on lap 1 all hell is going to break loose there. People are going to get messed up. People are going to try and overtake there. That's not a clever thing to do. And yeah, try and avoid all of the rubbish. So if you're new to the channel, what we do is we do a run through from the cockpit and we slow it down. I take you through the braking markers and the lines. Then we're going to run through from the chase cam at full speed, and then once again in the cockpit at full speed with the driving line. Without further ado, let's get in the cockpit and let's start the lap. Okay, here we are back in the cockpit. And we're over on the left-hand side. There's no braking for T1, but we're looking for that 1 marker, and that's going to be our cue so that we can start turning towards the apex. I'm going to come off the throttle down to about 4%, just to keep the rears. I'm not actually clipping the inside here. I'm gradually building it back up to about 26%, but once the speed gets below 130 kilometers an hour, about 84 miles an hour, I'm dropping it down into 3rd gear. And I'm going to balance the car on the throttle. So I'm up to about 26, 25. So just lazy weight on the foot, on the throttle. And as I get out to the mid-track, what I do is I lessen the throttle, which just increases obviously it's a lift off oversteer in this car. So as you come off the throttle, it means you're going to get more rotation. Start heading towards the apex. And now I'm back fully on the throttle. And what I'm looking to do is really clip and take this curve on the right-hand side. That will allow me to make the corner at full speed and go over the rumble strip on the left-hand side. Now, we're going to want to move back over to the right so that we can make this next turn, turn 3. So this lamppost on the right-hand side is where I start turning back in, and then a couple of car lengths before we get to the apex, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off the throttle. Again, I'm going to balance it around 25% until I want to get the rotation. Then I drop it a little bit. And what, again, we look to do here is to really clip the rumble strip, maybe a bit of grass on the left-hand side, and fully back on the throttle. So I'm up to 100% here. Over to the left-hand side, and then you can just go through here, this nice little left-right in 100%. And then we're changing up to 4th gear once I hit 133 kilometers an hour, again about 87 miles an hour. We're looking for the tree on the left-hand side. This is going to be our brake marker. So the way I'm pointing my car, I'm actually pointing away from the apex at this point, and that's so that I can open up the chicane so I can go in at a faster speed. So I'm now going to start braking once I get to the shadow of the tree. I'm going to brake up to about 75% in a straight line, again heading towards the outside, heading towards the rumble strip. And once I'm on the rumble strip, I'm going to start moving back towards the right so that I can make this first apex. So as I start moving back, you can see I've already come off the brake from 75 down to about 55. And I'm going to continue to bleed that off in a classic trail brake in 3rd gear, holding it, and start building back up on the throttle. Now, it all happens really quite fast. You want to be on the throttle, making sure that you're making the turn. You will understeer, so you can aim inside of the apex because you will be pushed out. So as you can see, I'm back up to 100% throttle here. I'm just missing the sausage curb on the right-hand side. The car's going to continue to understeer, and then it's going to start moving to the right quite rapidly. So that's when you're fully back, 90 degrees lock on the left-hand side so that you can make this next corner, again, without hitting the sausage curb. And you're staying on the throttle, and again, missing the last sausage curb. Now you're trying to keep the car as straight as possible. I see everyone head over off onto the left-hand side here to open up the next corner. You don't really need to do that. Up to 4th gear before the turn. Now, ideally, you don't do what I do here. So I'm just clipping the curb. It cost me about 400ths when I was looking at my deltas when I was running this. It's not the end of the world, but if you took a very slightly less harsh line in here, you could actually get by and just touch the white line as opposed to the curb. Doesn't really cost me too much, and this was my fastest lap. And then for the final corner, you're starting over fully on the left-hand side, and what we're looking to do is make the corner with as little wheel noise as possible. And the reason for that is when your tyres are screaming, it means that some of the energy, rather than being used to grip the track and propel you forward, is being used creating heat and sound energy, and that's not what we want. So we want to try and put in as little steering input as possible. We'll start turning nice and early. I'm already starting turning, and we're looking for very little wheel squeal there, as you can see. Over to the left hand side, and then we cross the line coming up here for a 103.680. I will see you for the chase cam. Okay, now let's run through at full speed. Obviously when we're going full speed you'll be able to use the telemetry on the left hand side so that you can see properly how I'm using this. Back over to the right, start turning in, come off the throttle, come off a little bit more when you need the rotation, then fully back on. Holding the throttle in here, changing up at 133 or 87. I'm braking hard at the tree up to 75%, trail it off nicely, up into third with full throttle. Try not to clip the inside here like I do. It can get slippy, especially in a race, especially if you're trying to overtake at that point. It's far better to wait and overtake on the straight that's coming up here. And this is where if you are leading a race, you will feel like a sitting duck as 3 or 4 people come flying past you. If that is the case, don't worry about it. You can always overtake them again. Okay, final run through, back in the driving seat and with the driving line on. The driving seat. You know, I shouldn't have started drinking early today. Down to third gear, balancing the car, back on the throttle, take the curve, let it drift out, back over to the right hand side. I like to take a nice tight corner here, back on the throttle, over to the left hand side, use the camber to make it on the right, up to fourth, get to the tree, brake hard, down to third, full throttle, don't hit the sausage curbs. Don't head out wide to the left, you're just making the track longer. Up to fourth gear, try not to clip this. And then the last turn with as little wheel squeal as possible. And across the line. I've been Sambo iRacing, you've been watching, see you next week.